Okay, so it's time to talk about the Halo TV series. It's finally here, and it's episode 1 that I saw last night, and I saw a leaked version of episode 2 as well. Also, coincidentally, last night, Picard released, also on Paramount Plus, by the way, if you didn't know that. So I guess there's going to be spoilers in this a little bit, so yeah. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. I don't think there's a ton of spoiled stuff in this episode if you know or don't know Halo, but I guess there could be, so I'm just going to say spoilers, even though, whatever. I'm a huge Halo fan. Since 2001, the day that Halo came out on Xbox, the day that Xbox came out, my mother purchased it for me for Christmas. She hid it in the closet. It was her gift to me. I was skipping school because I'm an idiot. And I decided to search around, and I found it, and I was excited, and I played it. And ever since then, I was in love with Halo. I love the series, but I'm not a super serious person who's like, oh my god, it must be exactly like I think and like the video games were. It doesn't have to be like that, because guess what? It's not like that. And, man, people are going to have problems with this, because I do. But here's the thing. If you watched Resident Evil, the movies, the first ever Resident Evil movie, that feeling that you might have had if you're old enough to remember, if you're younger, you don't know what I'm talking about, fine. But basically, the first 3 or 4 Resident Evil games came out, and we all knew the lore of the games and how they were and how they vibed. And then we went to see the movie, and suddenly it wasn't a mansion, it was underground, and Umbrella was working underground, and there was a new character, Alice, and there wasn't Jill and Barry Burton, and we were like, what the hell is this? It's kind of Resident Evil, but not really. But it was pretty good, but it wasn't the lore of Resident Evil, really. It just had some of it in there, and then it was also the zombies were there. You know, it was very weird, and Umbrella was there. So I would liken this to that. When you saw the Umbrella stuff and the Queen and sort of some of those things they did, you were like, wow, this is awesome. They borrowed some ideas from the movie The Cube. They had some good innovation. But let's get to Halo. Let's get into Halo. Basically, it's like most things nowadays. White people are bad, and we're going to change up some things for why, I don't know. Who is this show for? I don't know. I'm assuming this show is for people who, like, the core of the show is for people who don't like Halo but want to watch a new series. So most of the story and dialogue stuff are for new viewers who like vaguely know about Halo or only casually have played Halo, things like that. And then I assume that all the visuals are for the Halo people, and that some of the lore of Halo is in here in ways that are different, so that you can also be like, oh, I know what that is. So I guess that's who this is for. I'm not sure. Most of the white people are bad people. There's a baddie character, a bad person character. She's working, with the Covenant and the priests over there, whatever. I won't even get that crazy in the lore. I'm just going to be very generic in this episode. Her name is Quan. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The main the character at the beginning, the good person, the female is Quan as well. But I'm talking about the person who plays the bad character, the bad guy. Basically, I believe they created a bad guy character who's a female woman. I'm assuming that they created her. I think it's Charlie, I think is her name in the show. Or no, her name is Charlie Murphy. Her name is she's Maki in the show, rather. So you know that. You might know about that. So she's Maki in the show. I'm trying to remember all this stuff off the top of my head, and it's hard to do it. She's Maki in the show. So she's a bad guy, right? Bad girl. Played by Charlie Murphy, which is confusing because I love Charlie Murphy, the comedian. We all know him from the Chappelle Show. So this person's bad, of course. White person, got to be bad. Commander Keyes, they race-swapped Keyes. Keyes we've always known to be this, white guy, whatever. But he's a good guy in this. He's essentially going to be a good guy. His daughter, Miranda Keyes, and him, they're going to be good people. So they needed to race-swap them. They couldn't be white. They had to become something else. So they're black in the show because we can't have a good white person. So yeah, there's that. But I like I think I like the guy they casted as Keyes, though, and I seemingly like the daughter, I guess. It's just a little shocking for a little bit because 20 years of seeing someone a certain way. It was even annoying in Halo Anniversary. Do you guys remember this when they upgraded the character? The character used to look like an old, general who was like, I'm Captain Keyes, and then they switched him in the Anniversary, and he looked weirdly younger and stuff, and it was like, this is weird. So it was even weirder when he got de-aged in Halo Anniversary. So anyway, we can get over this, right? Because it's just a story, and it's an alternate thing. It's an alternate timeline. Chief's group are called the Silver Team, which is basically a reference to, like, Silver timeline, different timeline, prime time, whatever you want to call it. They do that in Star Trek. Coincidentally, last night, Star Trek Picard Episode 4 came out, and it was literally just atrocious. And I've liked this season, so I'll do that video in another... I'll do that later. Maybe in this video or in another video, I don't know. But, so the bottom line is, the good thing about this show is the way it starts, with the, the fight on the colonists and the fight on the colony, and the Covenant coming down. They look like badasses, these, like, brutes or elites look badass. The Chief looks awesome in the gear. Visually, the fight scenes are fun. They seem good. All the stuff with the soldiers, the armor, the tech, that seems like Halo. It's really good. They use some sounds from the video game, which is weird because they use sounds from the video game, and yet they're going to be using Cortana voice, but we're not using the original Master Chief voice. And I'm assuming, again, that's because the guy who voices him is an old guy, probably because he's an old white guy. But, they're like, okay, we got to get rid of that guy because we can't have him under the helmet. He's not an actor. We need a real actor to play Chief. So what are you going to do? And also, the helmet's got to come off, probably so they could hire an actor, because nobody wanted to play Master Chief without showing their face, I guess, or whatever. And, man, I'm just shocked that the mask comes off in the first episode. We're already going to see who Master Chief is, because they're trying to really humanize Master Chief in this. That's a big difference. Over time, it's a very, very slow burn in the video game series that we humanize him. You could argue that the Master Chief in the video games doesn't have enough character, or doesn't have enough, like, character and backstory. He's just always kind of too busy, like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to, he's very strict and stern, and, they're trying to give him more humanity here. I'm just worried it might be too much, but we'll see. And, they discover the Forerunner technology. There's brutal stuff in this at the beginning when the Covenant lands and kills people. They kill children. They kill the colonists. They blow body parts up. It's insane. I mean, like, it's actually awesome looking. It's like one of the best parts of the whole thing. As opposed to Picard, where on Star Trek, I don't like all this gore stuff that they're doing because it's not Star Trek. It's not Picard, but yet it is Picard now. As opposed to that, because if you hear me complain about that, I won't complain about it here because this is Halo, Now, can the kids watch this? I don't know. It's probably going to get a TVR mature rating, potentially. I think this is more of a PG-13 thing. There's no real swearing and stuff. There's just some violence and gore. I don't think anybody was really naked or anything. So, I don't know. I feel like it's a PG-13 right now, but it could get that TVMA rating eventually. And again, I like the Spartan support with Master Chief. I like the other Spartans. I like the cast. What you could argue about, like, who should be good, bad, and weird, and how they recasted this, that, and the other thing. They race swap people, and, yeah, we got to make all the white people bad. But, I mean, I like the cast for the most part. There's another bad character that they have. Here's a list of them. The Admiral Margaret Parangowski. They kind of like she's I don't know, man. She's a little over the top evil. There's a lot of gray area characters too, where, like, you don't know, they could be on any side, or they whatever. But I don't know, man. They kind of go a little overboard with Margaret Paranowski, but it is what it is. I just thought it was a little too much. Like, I'm such a bad person. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of female bad people. I noticed that the women are all, like, almost all the women are bad. Like, unless, whatever. But Quan is really cool. I like her. for the most part. I pretty much like her. I sympathize with her at the beginning. She watches all her friends die. And her everybody like dies. I would have been more mad that where were the Spartans at the end? They could have killed the rest of these guys. But overall, it was like episode 1 was a pretty good episode to me in some ways. It was just a little jarring on some of the changes, and I think once we get used to that, it could be a little better. So, but I would compare this a lot to Resident Evil. It really reminds me of Resident Evil, the movie. It's like I'm watching, and I don't think they derive that much from the story. Maybe that Resident Evil, the original movie, did, but I don't know. Pablo does pretty good as Master Chief, I guess. But it just doesn't feel right, It just doesn't feel quite right. I can't explain it when he takes the mask off, and maybe that's 20 years of seeing you've never seen this guy take his helmet off. So 20 years of that, and now all of a sudden you're seeing it. It's a little shocking. Especially if you have visions of what the guy under there could look like, or you don't even want to know, or maybe you even envision the voice actor who was under the helmet. Whatever it is, it's noticeable that it's not, that it's different. But a good actor, for the most part, everybody's good. I think the dialogue's not the best. Again, we've got a human bad guy, female human bad guy, working with, the Covenant and the priests. I assume, I don't know, because maybe they can, to save on CGI, to connect the humans a little more. I don't know what the reason is for that. I'm not sure what Maki is and what the reason for that is in this show at the beginning. Why do we have to have humans versus humans right away? Why isn't it not just the Covenant? That would make it so much more mystical and crazy and interesting if it's just this alien race and Covenant coming in and you don't know what's going on and we have to listen to them speak and they're talking. But no, now a human is one of the bad guys, or whatever, main villains. I don't get it. They find the Forerunner technology on the planet. The Forerunners obviously left the technology for humans to use. They thought they would be the successors, and they made it so that only humans could use the Forerunner technology in the Milky Way galaxy. And the Forerunners are gone, and the Covenant treat them like religious artifacts. The Covenant thinks they're religious artifacts. So they're super concerned with humans being able to access them in the way they do. And that's why they need to find the Halo rings and that sort of thing. So that's still there, and that's interesting, and it's pretty interesting. This episode was a bit jarring. I don't like these week-to-week continuation episodic things. I feel like the same thing's happening in Star Trek Picard. This week's episode was just a quick thing, and it was offensive. If that makes any sense, there was just stuff that doesn't make any sense. I'm going to get to that in my other review of that maybe. But it's just people that aren't believable. And I am just lost on what they're doing in Star Trek. But the same people are doing this show here on Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus seems to all be the same thing. Weird woke stuff with subpar storytelling, with franchises you love, with lore that we're just rewriting or forgetting about. That's the bottom line with all of this stuff. And people that look like me are bad people. I guess. I don't know. I don't know that's just what it is. I mean, they reference it in... They don't reference that stuff in Halo, but they do in Star Trek. So it's like, okay. So yeah, I mean, I've looked at some other people's reviews all around. It seems to be consensus, what I believe and what I'm saying here, by several different types of people of all walks of nature, religion, and race, all kind of agree with this, that this show is... I'm worried a little bit here about Halo, but it was somewhat entertaining enough to keep me like, all right, I'll watch episode 2 or 3. But if you sort of don't know anything about Halo, it's probably pretty decent. You know, it's a little like, it's going to remind you a bit of the Mandalorian type of stuff, obviously. But obviously Halo was out before that. You know, that's why this should have been out 10 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago. This should have been out. But now it's like people are just going to be like, oh, it's like the Mandalorian, but like lower budget. You know, that's what I feel like people are, you know, going to say. But it's just, it's pretty good. I think it's worth a watch. After the first 3 episodes, that's when we're really going to know, because the second episode really drops off and stalls. So we're going to need 3 or 4 episodes to really figure out what we're in for here. But episode 1 was pretty decent. I would probably give this a 6.5 out of 10. As a Halo fan, I wish I was giving it a 9 or an 8 or a 10. But this could be a 6.5, 7. And the second episode is worse. So if that's the trend it sticks with, then we're going to be in for a subpar Halo series that you might watch but grimace about. But the actors were pretty good. The only role and actor I didn't like was Admiral Margaret Parangowski. Thought she was stiff, annoying, like just there to be bad. I guess served the purpose, but just, I don't know. We'll see what it. We'll see. I did like the sound effects to the nod to the game and all the little references to the game that they made. I don't need it to. I don't want it to be the game because that's weird, you know. So don't get too gamey. They sort of tried to do that at the beginning and get that out of the way. Like, look, it's like the game, see? But no, it's a movie. Now it's a show. So they did a good job, I think, like inserting that, kind of like how Mortal Kombat did a little bit in the original one, or a few times in, you know, video game movies. I think Doom did a good job. Remember in Doom at the scene where he had to go through the halls killing people and they went into first person and the gun was there? That was kind of cool in the movie Doom. And I sort of think they did their version of that in this. So, but again, it could be a lot worse. It really wasn't that bad. I might be making it out to be worse. I thought it was I think it's worthy of a 7 out of 10. You know, so I think you might enjoy it. I'm a little concerned, and I'm a little floored as a Halo fan, knowing the lore a bit. And I'm not the craziest lore person. I'm sure there's people out there, the people out there that read the books in depth and like obsess about the lore of Halo and always tried to put together all the lore and all the video clips and make it into a movie themselves and like watch it. You're just go back to that, because these people's heads are going to explode. Their heads are going to blow off their bodies. Like, they're not going to be able to deal with this. I'm fine, but you're not going to be able to deal with it out there. But I just look at it, if you just look at it like an alternate reality, if you look at it like, hey, this is someone else's take of Halo, and if you think it sucks, then, you know, just turn it off and go watch the real Halo, it will always be the real Halo. The video game, some of the books, you know, that stuff will always be the real Halo. You know, just like Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 will always be the real Resident Evil story and game. You know, the movies are for fun, hey, let's take that world and make it into a fun little movie over here. Okay. You know, so if you can separate those things, you're going to be okay. I can separate those things. I mean, I have more trouble with Picard because Star Trek Picard is the continuation of a guy who was really in a TV show that was great and amazing that I loved, Star Trek The Next Generation. But now Captain Picard is an old person who gets yelled at by women every episode, and white people are bad. So I just don't know. And he is weird, and people swear at him, and he is a shell of a person, and it's a very weird show. But we'll talk about that in another video probably. But whatever. This is the world now. We need people divided and to hurt each other, and we need to, you know, who knows what they need to do. But again, like I said, 6.5 out of 10 maybe for me. Maybe give it a 7 just to like give the first episode a bonus. Like, here, give it a 7 because the second episode's a 6.5. So give the first episode a 7. How about that? I don't know. And we'll see what happens going forward. If you guys have comments, leave it in the comment section down below with what you think. And I'll see you tonight live on my channel for Beat the Clock live tonight. Maybe we'll talk a little more about Halo and other things. We'll see you then. Oh.